Welcome back to the podcast. Now, this episode's going to be a little bit different because I was a guest on Gabriela Handal's show, A Conversation About Art. So this creative endeavor is going to be a little bit different because I'm the one being interviewed. And with Gabriela's permission, I'm going to present that to you here in this episode. We get into all kinds of things. She asked me all kinds of questions about art and life. And if you ever wanted to hear Tish get a little bit ranty, then here's your chance. I was asked about my views on art, which I'm not often asked about, though if you've been listening to the podcast, you've probably figured it out. I'm not a huge fan of modern art. Maybe it has its place, but I think, I start to draw the line when people start taping bananas to walls. Just saying. Anyway, we talk about that and much, much more in this episode. It runs a little over an hour, and this was episode 120 of Gabriela's show. Now, before we get into this episode, I just want to shout out and give a big thank you to this podcast sponsor, Rosemary & Co. As an artist, your tools are everything. And when it comes to brushes, quality is non-negotiable. That's why I trust Rosemary & Co. For over 40 years, they've been crafting the finest brushes in the industry, ensuring every stroke is as precise as your artistic vision. Don't settle for brushes that let you down. Upgrade to Rosemary & Co. today and feel the difference a great quality brush can make. They don't only make oil painting brushes, they also make acrylic and watercolor brushes as well. So don't wait. Get your hands on some of these amazing quality artist brushes today by visiting www.rosemaryandco.com. And a huge thank you to Rosemary & Co. for sponsoring this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast. So sit back, relax. I really hope you enjoy. This is me in a conversation about art.
And welcome again to my audiovisual channel. My name is Gabriela Handal. I'm a draftsman and your host for this podcast, A Conversation About Art. With these conversations, I'm doing long-term research on the meaning of art and beauty through conversations with colleagues in different artistic fields. Today, I bring you episode 120 with artist Andrew Tischler, better known as Tish. If you enjoy this video, please like and share and comment, subscribe, everything, because these actions are very helpful. You can help even further by checking out the links in the description. Tish, welcome to A Conversation About Art. You are episode 120, as I just mentioned. Please tell our listeners and viewers who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gabriela. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. Okay, so I guess elevator pitch here. I'll just give you my short story. Try not to make it too long-winded, but I have basically been drawing ever since I can remember. I was raised by an artist. My father is a sculptor, and I have always loved art. I never thought of anything else that I would like to do with my life. I just always knew that I'd be doing something creative. And so fast forward, I was pretty active with that, my art in my schooling days. Did not pay attention at all as a child in class. Instead, I would prefer to draw and paint. And I was told by various people, including teachers, that I'd never amount to very much and not go very far. But I ended up just sticking to my guns, and I kept painting and drawing. Shortly out of high school, I went and did a fine arts degree at a tertiary institution in Australia. Don't recommend it. I should have gone to an atelier, looking back. This was more of an academic institution. And that kind of broke me for a period of 2 years. I spent a long while there just spinning my tires, trying to figure out what I wanted to do and where I fit in. And then it struck me about exactly how I was going to apply myself as an artist and what I wanted to do. I came across the right influences at the right time, and I realized that I just wanted to paint beautiful pictures and really try and brighten people's experience and beautify their spaces, whether it was their homes or offices, and just create something that celebrated the natural beauty of the world around us and places that I'd been to and places that I found awe-inspiring. And so it really started off with a huge landscape focus that has since developed into still life, portraits, and a range of other subjects, but still very much traditional realism. And I've been doing that now full time for the last 21 years. And now I have been teaching for the last decade. I run my own online art school called Tisch Academy, and we're growing pretty rapidly there. We're nearly at the 2,000 members mark, and still going strong. So that's been an amazing experience. Before that, it was live workshops that I was teaching in person. Really blessed to be able to do that again. We've got our New Zealand art tour in 2025 that's coming up here pretty shortly. That's nearly fully booked. So it's been an amazing experience of just painting and then really sharing that with other people. I love the experience of teaching. I love that light bulb moment that goes off in somebody's mind when you can show them what happens when you mix these two colors together, or if you change the direction of your pencil stroke just so, or change the weight of your lead or the type of paper or whatever. I really enjoy giving people access so that they can unlock their creativity and say what they want to say. And that just has me just keep coming back to realism and traditional painting and drawing. I love it. I absolutely love it. I eat, breathe, sleep this stuff, and I'm all in.
Okay. Well, that's great, and it's inspirational in a way. It's what word do I want to use here? Just encouraging, and I mean also inspiring for sure when an artist does not embody the starving artist, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just because that stigma for whatever reason continues to just be present, and it's robust and sturdy.
Yeah.
It's there. Lots of people will still hear, oh yeah, no, you don't get into art because you're just gonna starve. You're not gonna be able to do anything, like this type of stuff. So okay, so how did you go from the arguably childish, whimsical desire to draw, and then kind of wanting to copy dad in a way, like want to hang out with dad and do what dad does, to being like, I'm going to be an artist? What changes within, I guess, for that transitional thing to happen to the individual, that you're like doing it for fun, and then you're like, no, I want to do this for work, like as a job? Because I mean, a lot of people say that tarnishes kind of the legitimacy of the work, the output of the artist, so like,
I can.
Yeah.
So there's a few things there. And I'd say that it wasn't a single transition, but several transitions over a period of time. I found that over my trajectory, there's been a series of enormous kind of peaks, couple of valleys, but this kind of stepped plateau effect where you kind of get a new realization. You'll cruise there at that altitude for a little bit. Oh, then you discover something else. And now, and quite often what has propelled me forward has been some form of crisis, some form of challenge that I've had to overcome in order to move on to another level. And that taught me a lot about embracing challenge and these things that come along, and just try to see the opportunity in everything. But I just want to speak to something that you just mentioned before. I did embody the starving artist thing for a little while, and as I've been going through these stages, these peaks, these valleys, these plateaus, I found myself really coming up against some pretty severe things where I had to reinvent myself and rebuild from a place that, some people it could have wiped out. But for me, I guess and I'm not unique in this way. I've been around enough people and read enough stories and looked into this enough to understand that if you put your mind to something, and if you lean into something, if you believe in something, as corny as this sounds, you can overcome. And so let me give you a specific example of what I'm speaking about there. So I've lost my business and gone completely broke twice, and I've had a number of experiences where, you know, back in 2008 we had the global financial crisis. Yeah, so 2008 was a huge deal for me, and it didn't we didn't feel the effects in Western Australia until many years later, which was it really Western Australia was insulated because of a strong resource sector. But when that came about, like, I lost all of my clients and all of my sales. It forced me to go into teaching, and fortunately for me, I realized that I love teaching. I love doing the workshops, and I loved helping people. I think I really just had that spirit of service where I just wanted to help other people, get what they wanted to get and do really well with their direction. So yeah, that was something. I want to make sure I don't go too far off track because I have the tendency to go on a tangent and completely avoid the question. But that was something that really helped me, and I think now, again, with the whole starving artist thing, we can play that game. We can absolutely be starving artists, but I think with the amount of opportunity that's in front of us now, um, we can we can definitely make it. I don't think there's been a better time to be an artist. Still, as scary as the world may seem when you turn on the news, I think that there are so many opportunities for us. For instance, I think, like, galleries, for instance, back in the day. I think galleries are going to struggle for, and have been since the arrival of social media. But as an artist, you have the ability to represent yourself, have your own Facebook page, have your own Instagram page, and promote yourself, get your work out there. And I think that, that presents an opportunity. You can have your own website, your own virtual gallery space, and you can sell your work online. And there's so many different ways to diversify what it is that you do. Through prints, through some sort of products or licensing. And then, of course, when you go into teaching, you open up into a whole nother world. And then there's a whole content creation side of things and creating this thing called a personal brand. I think there's so many opportunities. It's just an awesome time to get into art, to be an artist, and to figure out a way to make it fly. I probably have done everything in my career online wrong. And the only reason it's worked is that I didn't stop and I just kept trying stuff until I figured out what did work. So anyway, I went on several tangents there. Apologies if I sorry about the background noise too.
No, it's not a problem at all. And I particularly like what you're talking about, which is that there's really no better time than now to be an artist, precisely
That's right.
because it can be so specifically tailored to whatever it is that the person wants. Because, like, for example, if the person has some kind of an aversion to real people, then you can just make tutorials and put them up online, just like on the YouTube, and then that's your tutorial
Mhm,
and that's it, for
mhm.
example. Or you can make your online courses over the Zoom or the Discord or whatever, this type of stuff. So it's like, you can be like, anyone can be like super nitpicky about what you want to do, and you can totally make your path super specific to that desire, whatever it is that you have in mind.
Yes.
And I also
Yes.
think it's really important what you're saying about continuing to try different things,
Mhm.
because that's also how one can discover what works best and what doesn't work. Not to mention continuing by default, just like keep doing
Mhm.
it. Like,
Mhm.
even whether the one thing didn't work, you're still making your paintings and your sculpture, your drawings, this type of stuff, just like the entire time. Yeah, I like the collection of that stuff quite a lot. So you mentioned that um it, the combination of the business with art can
Mhm.
tarnish the work.
Yes, it can.
Because I mean, some people say that. So I wonder how you think that can happen. Under what circumstances could that happen?
Okay.
And how and I'm sorry. And how
Mhm.
does one avoid that? How does one avoid it?
Very good. I'm still working that out. If anybody has an answer, please let me know. But from what I've experienced, whenever we're doing our art as a means to an end, as something for material gain, and that's the reason that we're doing it, there's something that ends up being missing from the final article. Whether it's a painting or a sculpture or drawing, doesn't matter. If you're doing this thing because you think you can make a sale, then you're already cooked. So for me, the way I have attempted to get around that, and I say tried and attempted because I'm still I'm still very much growing and learning and feeling my way through this, and I'm not about to say I've arrived. I don't think I have. I think there's still so much more exploration that I need to do here with my own work and this relationship in particular, between the art and the money side of things. The reality is we have to get along in the world. We have to make an income, and when you're an artist, that's going to mean that you're selling the work. But what I found is that when you are authentically engaged in what it is that you love, so you are doing the art for the love of things, for the love of it, then you focus there first. And so this is where I put all of my energy, all of my creativity, going for those subjects that I love, that nobody had to pay me for, that I would just do this stuff anyway, whether I was getting paid or not. And so that's one way. So to maintain authenticity, I think that's the secret. It is authenticity. It has to be a genuine expression. You have to, as an artist, take that thing that's within and draw it out, get it out of you. The minute you attach to that some sort of monetary value or monetary gain, you're anticipating that at the end of this exercise, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons. So how then do you make this work as a commercial pursuit to make money? Because the reality is I still have to go to the grocery store and buy food. Otherwise, I will be hungry. I'm not a farmer. I'm not growing it myself. So I'm going to have to get somebody else to do that stuff, and they're going to want some money for that. So how are we going to get along in the world? Well, for me, I found that when I'm authentically engaged in the thing that I love, and I have put it out there to enough people, I have then attracted an audience that wants to take part in what I'm authentically creating. Then the sale just happens. It's not something that I have to push. Now, for instance, right now, I'll just give you, it's a little bit of a tangent, but just on a side note, like I've got some tech guys that help me. And my head guy here edits a lot of video, but he also checks in from time to time on the numbers and the analytics. I was just having a conversation with him yesterday saying, I'm not checking the numbers. I'm not about to look at those analytics because it completely derails me. It completely hijacks me. I don't care. I care that there's people there that are following. I want them to follow. That's awesome. And I'm grateful for the following, but I don't get attached to that number because the minute I start obsessing about how many are signing up, how many are unsubscribing, how much did we make this month versus last month or whatever, it completely derails the art. I know if I'm authentically in my zone, in my lane, that there will be some sort of growth or not, but generally there is, as long as I'm kind of doing what I need to be doing, then I think that's where I need to focus. So it is difficult. It's this kind of dance where you've got, one foot in your creativity, one foot. So kind of like, part of you's in the left brain, part of you's in the right brain, and you're kind of bouncing back and forth between the two. It is difficult. I'll give you that. But I think the most important thing, and this is why I get so much out of my conversation with Joe Paquette on my podcast. He just asks you, what do you love? What's that thing that you really want to love? That you love, and have the guts to go after that. And you will find your audience. You will find that niche. And that niche, if you're putting out enough stuff, will be able to support you. Now, just one more thing on this. So I've seen this with a few of my colleagues, for instance, and I've talked about this before on my podcast, where you would go to an exhibition and you would see a painting that would move you, and you'd be like, wow, that's unique, that's different. The way this is painted is so interesting. It's slick. It's a great work of art. And you feel something there, and then you go to the next exhibition. Maybe it's a year later, or maybe it's shown somewhere else or whatever, and you see a different painting, but it's the same painting again. And now you're like, okay, well, it's still kind of got that thing, that's kind of neat, but I've seen that. And then, then maybe it's the third year and you show again, here's the painting, different painting, but it's the same painting, you know what I mean? And so what's happened, and this is a trap that I've fallen into, I've seen other people fall into it, is that you'll do something authentically inspired from within. You've drawn this thing out, and now suddenly there is a material reward. You've made the sale. And instead of making the connection, I made the sale because somebody else was moved and they saw this thing and wow, they were inspired to buy it. You've now gone, oh, okay, hang on. Crashing wave with light coming through it. That worked. I'm going to just now do a whole bunch of crashing waves and boil the life out of that idea. And you get stuck now in this trap of all you paint are teepees, all you paint is sunsets, all you paint is crashing waves, or all you do, you're the guy that does the white, the red, and the blue stripe on the canvas, and that's it. So I think it can be a trap, and I think what can get us out of that trap is awareness, and we simply need to switch that awareness to what's within. Bring that awareness back to what is it that inspires and moves me? What am I authentically driving towards? Go after that. Shamelessly go after that. Don't worry about what anybody's going to think, because now with how big the world is and that we're all connected now, you can carve out a niche as it gets. Try me. There is going to be an audience that is going to pick up the weird, freaky art that you love to do, that you think, oh, well, if I did this, no one's going to be into it. Try it. I'm telling you, there's going to be some freaks just like you that are going to be into that stuff. So that's my take on it.
Okay, that's perfect. I love it. And then I think the analog with something about a video podcast that you were talking about, with what you were saying about your tech guys, that they tell you about the numbers in your videos. I think that's a perfect analog, and I've also used it in the past. I mean, for the podcast itself, because it's like, I don't want to make the episodes shorter. I don't want to make the thumbnails that call attention with the exaggerated facial expressions and the like the capitalized names for the the clickbait titles, this type of stuff, because I don't want to play that game, And it's like, I mean, I don't want to do it, and it's like, if somebody does it, whatever, but I don't want to do it. So then it's like, in terms of the length of the podcast, like you were saying just now, if you do the thing, and you do it for long enough and you stick with it, that's the crap that you want, that you're going to call. So then I don't have to make the little sound bites, and I don't have to do the shorts or the reels or whatever. The people with the attention span that goes for an hour are going to listen to the podcast for an hour,
Yes.
And I think that's great. And I think it's a perfect analog for the work as well. It's just like we were saying just now, just keep making the work, and your crowd is going to come to your work because you're putting it out there enough that eventually they're going to see it, Okay.
That's
so,
right.
So, Mr. Tisch, what is art?
Oh my word. That's a big question. Still figuring it out. I think art. Wow, there's so many answers I could give you. The answer that I learned in art school was, art is whatever an artist makes. And who is an artist? Well, an artist is whoever says they're an artist. So now we're getting into some really muddy territory. But I think art, and I was just talking to my dad about this on my podcast. I interviewed my father. He's in his 70s now. He's still going strong, and he's producing some pretty cool sculptures. And I asked him, what makes great art? And he had an interesting take on this. And if I can remember correctly, what he said, and again, I'm just making the distinction there between what is art and what is great art. I think I'll try and answer the what makes great art first, but I think it's going to take. Obviously, you're going to have to make something. You're going to have to make something, and that's something that you make, whether it's sculpture, painting, ceramics, video, music, whatever it is. It's going to have to demonstrate that there is skill involved in the creation of that thing. Personally, I am driven, I am obsessed with, I love people that can demonstrate they have skill. I look for that. I'm looking for people that have earned their stripes, paid their dues, and have demonstrated that they're all in and have put in the hard yards, the brush miles, the pencil hours to create. I mean, like the work you do. You draw beautifully.
Thank
I'm
you.
following you on Instagram, and it's really beautiful stuff. So when I look at your drawings, I'm like, this is great art. So it demonstrates that there is an understanding of your subject. That's the other thing. So some insight. That you know what it is that you're talking about your subject. You're bringing a particular message, and then it's got to convey some sort of meaning or emotion, have some form. It doesn't have to be an elaborate narrative, but it just has to convey something to the viewer. So I think if it's got those three things, and I'm probably forgetting something from what my father was saying, but for me, those are three big things. You've got some sort of skill that you've demonstrated there. You know something about that subject. You've got some sort of personal attention, personal attachment to that subject, and that there's some sort of meaning conveyed. And I think that if you can achieve that and bring across the line all of those things, then I should say, I'm making a butchery of this, but whatever. I should say that the one of them has got to be that it communicates non-verbally. That was the other thing as well. So if you have to explain to me what the heck it is that this thing means, so that I can memorize your artist statement and tell the other people at the dinner party to make myself feel and sound interesting, I think if you got to do that, I think it kind of fails the art. Is it art test? And I think great art will do all of those things. Maybe I'm a little stuck in the past. Like, I don't really vibe with a lot of the modern academic stuff. I'm a traditional guy. So when I am in the museum, I'm making a beeline straight to those traditional old school paintings from those dudes and dudesses who were painting hundreds of years ago, even 100 years ago. And when I look at it, it demonstrates skill. It demonstrates an enormous amount of insight and understanding of their subject. It conveys some sort of meaning or emotion, and it totally communicates non-verbally. I don't need to read the artist's statement to understand what the chill of winter feels like when I look at Ivan Ivanovich Shishkin. I get it. It moves me. So that's what I try to achieve. But I mean, nowadays, so many things pass for art that I sometimes feel like, well, just don't call me an artist. If this is what art has become, I don't want to play this game. I'm not about to tape a banana to the wall. I don't care how edgy people think it is. Oh, it's never been done before. I don't give a rat's. It's not art. As far as I'm concerned, this is a mockery of art. And it's captured attention. I think a lot of people are doing this to be shocking, to grab a headline, to get readers for the newspaper, or let's just call it what it is, or to launder money, or, I am a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, whatever, or to destabilize culture. There are agencies and institutions that have used art and artists to destabilize culture, or to just completely hijack culture and move the window in a different direction. And so I'm such a fan of beauty, of tradition, of these classic values and ideals. I don't care that it's been done before. I still think there's room for people's voices within that sphere, and I want to see more people creating beautiful stuff. I've had enough of the you know, I saw this reel the other day, and it was just one modern art piece after another. There's a guy on a trampoline who was running past a gallery wall, and he jumps on the trampoline with a piece of charcoal, and with
I
this
saw
big
that.
arc, he draws on the thing, and then there's this clap. I'm like, shut up, shut up, stop getting my tax dollars, you pack of numpties. So I'm maybe I'm a little bitter, but I went to school with these people. Like I studied at an academic institution with these people. And yeah, it's insane. It's absolute insanity. Yeah. So that's me. Um, yeah.
Okay, so all right. I'm trying to decide whether I try to um kind of argue against the points you make to for the purpose of exercising my brain, or if I agree with everything you just said. Because I mean, I agree with everything that you just said, and kind of like,
No,
agree
let's
with what you
fight.
said and like
That'll be
add.
fun.
Yeah, no, but because I mean, so all right, so I mean, the reason for the podcast, okay,
Hmm.
the reason for which I started the podcast
Hmm.
is, first of all, because I want to sell my work. And I realized that there was
Awesome.
this connection, I realized that the relationship between what I understand about art and what I think art is actually is was off because of what you're saying. Because it's like, oh, all the joke stuff, all the trash or whatever that usurps the name of art has completely polluted the idea of art for
Hmm.
everyone, including artists.
Hmm.
And this has happened over years and decades since, like the
Hmm.
First and Second World War, that everybody was like, why are we doing this to each other? This is stupid. Um,
Mm.
so 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 I was like, all right, because I don't understand my own product, that's why it is difficult for me to sell my work. So then I was like, I have to understand what I am doing in order to sell the work. Okay. So then
Right.
after doing a few episodes, I was like, all right, my understanding is congealing a little bit. So now
Hmm.
I want to talk to specifically to people who have these allegedly old ideas,
Hmm.
allegedly old and trite ideas about both art and beauty, because I that's what I think both are. You know,
Right.
for art, you have to make the thing, you have to make something, and you have to make
Hmm.
it well, like you were saying. And
Hmm.
the work the work has to stand on its own. You cannot have the little plaque explaining the thing to the viewer.
Hmm.
You can't. All right.
Hmm.
And the work has to demand and hold the attention of the viewer. So this is the emotion that you're talking about.
Hmm.
In order for the viewer to want to invest time contemplating, spending time with the work. It's like
Yes.
that is that is the work of art, you know?
Yes.
And so, of course we can nitpick, because I guess this
Hmm.
is maybe like, for example, because I talk about this with my husband, and he's like, yeah, but what is make? It's like, at what point did you make the thing? And I mean, I think that's asking what is art and what is beauty and stuff. You can always ask the question, of course, you can discuss the
Hmm.
question because we want to think
Hmm.
about that stuff. So then I guess I want to ask you to elaborate, I suppose. What do
Hmm.
you think? At what point does one make the thing? Okay. Because I'm gonna chat for a bit more. All right. I know I've been talking for a little
Please.
while.
No, 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 no.
Um.
Please
So,
carry on. I'm listening.
okay.
Mm,
Okay.
interesting.
So all right. So I have my piece of paper that I bought. I have my pencil that I bought,
Hmm.
and I draw on the paper, and now the paper has a drawing on it.
Hmm.
Um. Do I need to have made the paper as well? Does it have to be homemade artisanal paper? Do I have to have made the pencil? Um, did the pencil make the work, or did I make the work? For
Hmm.
in it's like, what do you think about this possible argument at the point of making the work? I
Mm.
mean, do you have to have stretched your own canvases, for example, and prepared them yourself
Hmm.
for it to feel like
Hmm.
you made I mean, you see what I'm saying? What do you think about that?
Hmm. Well, yeah. So I typed the text prompt into the AI generator, so therefore I made the art. I think you can follow this thing down a rabbit hole here, but I think in order for it to be art, and I think we know. I do appreciate the question, but I think we know. No, I don't think, for instance, you have to make your own paper or stretch your own canvas, but there has to be some action that you are applying to the art, to this thing. There has to be some sort of action whereby your effort, this thing is created. What does that effort look like? I still feel like a huge part of this is that relationship between brain, heart, and hand. If it's going through that channel, then you've got art. It's just my opinion. This is why I don't call Jeff Koons an artist. Because what's Jeff Koons doing? He's connecting brain, maybe with heart, if he's got one. I'm not sure. I think he's pretty twisted. But anyway, let's say he does. So he's connecting brain with heart, and then he's outsourcing the hand to a team of artists who are making his work. I think that, to me, doesn't qualify as art. Just doesn't. Versus, and it's for the same reason. I don't think we look at movies, film, and television in quite the same way as we would look at painting and sculpture made by an artist, somebody who's put in that time. I think it really has to go through that. So then what qualifies as going through that chain? Well, I think you are manipulating material for an effect to create something. And, whether you made the paper or not, I don't think really matters. You're manipulating it in some way to create something. And again, as long as it demonstrates that skill, that insight, that message, feeling, emotion, and that nonverbal communication, then I think you have something that fits the bill. But when it comes to, like, there's a whole nother kettle of fish here, which has to do with AI art, which to me is an oxymoron. I mean, it's a contradiction. There's no such thing, in my opinion, as AI art, because the minute that AI is involved, it is no longer art. I really feel so strongly about this. Just had a really fascinating conversation with Greg Rukowski. His name was used in more than 400,000 text prompts for AI art generation. People were using his name all over the place, to the point it just became viral, and people were feeding his name into the AI to spit out a Greg Rukowski-esque type painting of whatever. Now, this is doing something where, just based on a text prompt, it is scraping from a wide range of images that are part of data sets online, and it's spitting out based on whatever text prompt you fed into it. You've now basically outsourced everything that made that art to something else. Can it look cool? Well, maybe. Can it be useful? If you're a company and you need social media content, or right away, sure. Get Tanya from Accounts to whip something up and post it to your Instagram. Fine. Is it art? No. And again, I feel very strongly like this about this. Some people think I've got the wrong idea. That's fine. It's just my opinion. But I really feel that there will be a reaction, and we will bring it back to what really moves us on a deep level. And one of those things that moves us as artists as well is just the making of the dang stuff. People, I think there's a lot of people who aren't artists that haven't been sitting in the stool in front of the easel for hundreds, if not thousands of hours, that now suddenly get a kick out of, hey, check out what I made on ChatGPT kind of thing. I don't think any real, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think any real serious artists are using this thinking that this is a move in the right direction. Most people that I talk to think this is a big step backwards and quite dangerous. Let me ask you something. Have you ever struggled with brushes that fray, shed, or just don't hold up to the job? I sure have. But then I discovered Rosemary & Co. brushes. Handcrafted with care and precision, they deliver consistency and control that every artist needs. If you're serious about your art, it's time to make the switch. Visit rosemaryandco.com and invest in some of the best brushes in the world. Rosemary & Co. have been making the finest quality artist brushes for over 40 years, and it's all I use here in the studio. My favorite is the Tisch Dagger, but of course, I would say that, wouldn't I? But no, seriously, it's my favorite. It's all I use when I block in a painting. But hey, maybe oils aren't your thing. Maybe you're an acrylic painter or a watercolor painter. They've got those brushes too. Check them out. Visit rosemaryandco.com. Go ahead and click that link in the description below or the notes that accompany this podcast episode and add some Rosemary & Co. brushes to your kit today. And a huge thank you to Rosemary & Co. for sponsoring this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast. Now let's get right back into our conversation with me and Gabriela Handal in a conversation about art.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the aspect of it's not the person that's making the image, and also in the thing about what is arguably a layperson wanting to make something the way that an artist does without any of the effort that an artist has accumulated. And I don't know if you have fiddled with these devices, but I have with the image generators. And obviously it's not the same, all right? But the thing is that you put in your prompt and then the thing makes the image, and then if you want to make changes in the image, then you have to do stuff to it. And so the way that it works is that you kind of change the prompt and use the images that have been produced for the next images to be based on, to have a basis for the next images, all right? And then I just ran out of patience trying to get the thing to do what I wanted it to do, because I was just like, I'm just going to draw it myself, okay? So because I was just like, oh my God, this is enough. I wanted to do other stuff.
Totally.
So then effectively, and somebody actually in a previous episode insinuated even, and you can tell me what you think about this, I guess, insinuated that there's something similar in photography because, the image is happening within the device, within the camera. So then something, and I actually made a video making a parallel between these two things, between the camera and the AI image generators, because the generation of the image is happening within the device. All of the decisions are being made by the device. So it's like the person inputting the prompt has it's like, other than like the phrase, it's like, you're not going to decide what weight the lines have. You're not going to choose necessarily like the hue of the color. It's like, you're not going to choose, what is going to be blurry, what is going to be sharp. It's like the device is choosing all of that for you, so then it's like, it takes agency completely away, or in large part away from the person who is manipulating, putting in the prompt. So then, if you want to draw yet another parallel between, I guess, the drawing and the pencil, it's like, what is the level of agency that the pencil has versus the AI? If I put the pencil down, nothing happens.
Yes.
But then I have to be actively moving, engaged physically for the drawing to happen. But then for the image to happen within the generator, you just put enter and then that's it. That's it.
That's right.
An image comes out. So I don't know. What do you and also, there's this whole thing about the democracy of art, how it excludes, it's elitist or whatever, and it's gatekeeping. It's like whomever has enough interest has the potential. Everyone has the physical capability. It's like, it's there. Sit down and draw and learn how to do it. It's like, why would somebody be cool with believing they have no potential to be a person who makes a drawing that is good and looks good? It's like, I just think, I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of ranty and I'm rambly. You thought you went on tangents. Tell me what you think.
I love it. Well, just on the photography thing. So I might tend to agree, except I know, and I consider him a friend. I know a very talented photographer. His name's Will Patino. He's based here in the South Island of New Zealand, and he. So if all of that stuff is happening inside the camera, and he's got very little to do with it, I still think that will he's got that brain heart hand connection still. He had to climb through the forest to find a waterfall that no one has ever photographed before in this particular valley just near his house in Tiana. So I'll give you a specific example. Then he had to walk all the way around all of these slippery rocks, and it was totally up to him and his eyes. He viewed through that viewfinder to be at that specific location. Okay, let's just set the camera down. Let's get the camera to do that by itself. It's not going to happen. It's an inanimate object until he's actually manipulating it and making it work. So that's his paintbrush. That's his pencil. So he's creating incredible work. And there's a difference between photographers like Will and people that own a camera. I just happen to be somebody that owns a camera. I'm not a photographer. He's got a level of talent and skill and ability, which demonstrates he's bringing to it understanding of subject, insight, skill, and he's conveying a message with his images that do move people. He's on Instagram. He's got a huge following on Instagram, and some of his photographs look like 19th century paintings. They're beautiful. The effort this guy goes to capture that is incredible. So I think it qualifies. I think photography definitely qualifies as art, for sure. Again, my opinion. But I forgot where else we were going with that, Gabriela. You're gonna have to bring it back. Early morning here. So what was the other question? What was the other question? What am I ranting on?
The the aspect of AI generators that
Yeah.
take away the possibility for the potential artist to become an artist. Because it
Yeah.
doesn't, there's that demand isn't there anymore, because the person, what is arguably a layperson,
Mm.
believes that they can make art with the AI, and kind of they're just like, oh, I'm not going to draw for 20 years to get better. I don't know.
Yeah, I think just on that note, there is going to be the reality where this disrupts an entire industry. I mean, we're seeing this with shipping, packaging, transport, trucking, public transport. We're seeing it in automation through factories. Factory workers are going to be losing their jobs. They're, policing, the military, all of these things that require people, restaurants, cafes, whatever, you name it. People are about to be replaced because now you're going to have like complete total automation across the board with all of these different things. And there's not going to be the opportunities for employment of physical people. Physical people they're annoying. They get sick. They get tired. They have to. They want money. Oh my goodness! But you create a robot. Maybe it's a little initial startup cost, and hey, it's great. The thing is that, and I think it was Henry Ford that was saying this about his cars. I forget the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of he wanted his people to be able to afford his car. If he didn't get that balance just right, he'd be creating this thing that people just wouldn't be able to afford. I think we're going to run into a similar situation. I'm no economist. I'm pretty dumb when it comes to this stuff, but I do see the thing is like you've got all of these people, and if you want the people to be able to take part in society and be able to afford all of these products that your automation is now producing, that people are going to have to work or have some sort of income to be able to do that. Now maybe we're getting into a territory where there could be some sort of, because the only solution is you give everybody money and have some sort of universal basic income, or you get rid of the people. I don't know what's going to happen, but anyway, we won't go there. But in terms of AI, what we're going to see is, we're already seeing this. And again, Greg Rukowski on my podcast was talking about this, where he was saying, well, look, companies are already displacing artists and pushing them out because, people within the company can just instead of hiring skilled artists, they can now use AIs to generate the stuff that used to have to be made by people that were really skilled. and probably pretty expensive. So this is causing people, particularly like things like film, television, gaming, all that stuff that required art, a lot of design, a lot of art, a lot of creativity. Those jobs, are moving and disappearing. However, I still think, and maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I still think that there is going to be a desire, maybe at the higher end, but a desire for the handcrafted product. I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that's still going to be something that's coveted, collected, sought after, that people would be going for something that was made by hand by a skilled artist. And there might still be some place left at the top of the market. Maybe. There will also still probably be some space left for people that want to learn how to do this stuff. That's my hope anyway. Now, whenever I am scrolling on social media and I'm looking at art and I'll see something and be like, oh, that's quite interesting. That's very eye-catching. Wow, how creative, how different. And then I'll look at the hashtag and I'll be like, oh, it's AI generated. Okay, move on. I move on straight away.
Yep.
And I think people, I don't think I'm the only one. I know several artists that I talk to, they're like, oh, yeah, same. Just not interested at all. They just, they hate it. It's terrible. So, but that said, I mean, does AI make our life easier in other respects? Sure, maybe. Yeah. But I'm so old school, man, that have I used it in other areas? Yes. And you use it for things. Anytime you pick up your phone, there's some sort of artificial intelligence, something doing something. You go to type that email and Google suggests, Gmail, it suggests, did you mean to say this? It's like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say. So I'll just hit the forward key. And it's like, no, I'm going to type it myself. It's like, at least you've got, there are things that do make life just a little bit easier there. Does that make me a hypocrite? I don't know, maybe. But I think when it comes to art, to my sandbox, get out of my sandbox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So we must talk about other things, Mr. Tischler. What is beauty?
Sure. Wow. Okay. I think beauty is, wow, that's a huge question. I don't know if I can answer that, but for me, beauty is so tied up with my spiritual sense and my faith. And I feel like beauty, the things that I find really beautiful are things that are in some sort of order and perfection the way they were created. For instance, I find the natural world and the natural landscape beautiful. When it hasn't been, impacted, it's pristine. We're fortunate and blessed down here in the South Island to have some landscapes that are absolutely pristine. And you look at them and it's like, man, I could be here 500 years ago and it would look exactly like this. And I think, to me, that's the sort of thing that I find beautiful. And in the same way, I find people, faces, characters beautiful. That people are authentically being who they are, the way God intended them to be. And I find that really beautiful. It's weird, and my definition of that is also expanding and even getting deeper now that I have a son. As soon as he was born, that was the most beautiful thing I ever seen in my life, and that was a deeply spiritual moment, and I continue to think that as I watch him grow. And I think in some way, I try to bring that out with my art. And I think that it's important, I will say this, I think it's important that art is beautiful. I really think that's important. I think we've lost beauty. I think I think, tradition is coming back. There's a lot of people I'm not the only one, and I didn't pioneer this, not by a long shot. That's not what I'm saying. But I think there's so many artists out there that go for what is visually pleasing and beautiful. And I think they should just be unapologetic in that pursuit, that just go for it. There is a rabbit hole. I'll try not to. I spend my time while I'm in my studio going down all kinds of rabbit holes, and it's good fun because it also expands my thinking, my understanding, of things that happen and all this. I feel that so much of what we're told about history is probably not entirely accurate. And so just hear me out for a second. Look at architecture, for instance. Okay, 150, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, even back in the 1300s, we were producing architecture that was out of this world. And some stuff, I don't even think they can replicate today. You look at a lot of these old, Gothic cathedrals, for instance, amazing. The Duomo in Florence, incredible, beautiful. You look at the white and the green stone on the outside of that building and the dome that they've put on that. Oh my goodness. Then, you look at just, some of the facades in the old buildings that we used to have. And now we've lost that. There's a fantastic documentary called Why Beauty Matters. It was by a guy named Roger Scruton.
Yes.
Exactly. And there was this one line where he was saying, if I can remember it correctly, he was saying, here I am on an empty street and there's a cafe behind me and this cafe is bustling, and oh no, how because it was this last little bit of beauty and life, and there was just a little haven of beauty there. But no, it was something else. He said, no, the building behind me is empty. And it's empty because nobody wants to be in it. And nobody wants to be in it because it's so damned ugly. And I think what happens is when we shift our focus from tradition, beauty, our cultural roots, our heritage, and I'm speaking as a Westerner, okay? I come at this, but I think every culture has its own beauty standards, which are absolutely valid. You look at some Islamic architecture, out of this world. So I think every culture, architecture in India, out of this freaking world, dude. You go to any culture that's authentically expressing its tradition. I find that really beautiful. And I think in the West, we had this, but our focus has shifted where instead of becoming something that's celebrated within culture, we've now attached to it some sort of monetary value. That then is a bottom line, for instance. And now we go after utility first, function first. And so now that absolutely kills the art. It kills the beauty. So I think, I know I went off on a bit of a tangent there, Gabriela.
Not at all.
I think, I love that. Like right now I'm about to do a series of historical paintings based on the town where I'm living now, a place called Lawrence in the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand. You should have seen this town 100 years ago. They frickin' ruined it. They were like, oh, Gothic architecture is so last century. Let's knock it down and put up some other piece of crap, or just cut the top floor off it because it's just fallen out of favor. What are you doing? That's a crime. The way people have vandalized their heritage because it's now no longer fashionable, or we need to get our numbers up, fit more people in here, or I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent, but I when I'm looking at these old black and white photographs, I look at it and go, that is beautiful. Why? Demonstrated exceptional skill. It took so much freaking effort by skilled artisans and craftsmen and workers and builders to build that stuff. And it certainly conveys some sort of message.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
It bums me out. We don't do that anymore.
No, I agree with you. I have also complained about it for sure in previous episodes because in New York, there's lots of renovated buildings that are just ass boxes.
Yep.
that are so ugly and
Yep.
just, it's like, why would you, it's like, I want to, it's like, it's, the buildings are so ugly that I want to walk by like twice to ignore the building twice, you know,
That's
because
cool.
it's like, it's just like, I don't understand. I mean, so, okay, so I mean, Roger Scruton in that
Hmm.
documentary that you're talking about, he says what you just said about how, because that's another thing that has been applied to lots of things, like this efficiency, this expediency, fast,
Hmm.
minimalist, whatever, this type of
Yep.
stuff. So the argument is that um, form follows function. That's the
Yeah.
argument of those things, because it's like, if you want to go with that argument, then yes, you don't need any kind of flourish. You just need a box. You just need the
Hmm.
four walls. You just need roof. You just ceiling, floor, and that's it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Fair enough. If that is your argument.
That guy, I think it was that Ruskin that said that. John Ruskin, form ever follows function.
No, no, no. It wasn't. It was some modernist type
Okay.
person.
Whoever said that needed to be jailed.
No, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. I have grievances with this person,
Yeah.
whoever, I don't know who it was, but then Roger Scruton in the that same documentary, he says that it's actually
Hmm.
the other way around, and
Hmm.
he has a specific phrase. And when I look at buildings, I think about the phrase. He says, now we just have like these ridiculous buildings with, he says, meaningless details.
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah, they put like some sticky outy bricks and like a different color, and they put like a house-shaped roof that is just like a part of the facade, but it's not the shape of the roof of the house, like this
Hmm.
type of stuff. And it's like, I think about it, and it's like, why is that meaningless? Why is it a meaningless? Because I understand what he means, but it's like, why is it a
Hmm.
meaningless detail? And it's because it's clearly put down to get it out of the way, to just
Mm.
barely break the shape of the box so that it
Hmm.
is barely more palatable. So okay, but then I want you to, I would like it if you told me what you think about what is the relationship between beauty and the divine. Like what you were saying,
Mm.
that it has to do with spirituality and God and this sort of
Hmm.
stuff. And I mean, do you mean Christian? Are you Catholic?
No, I'm Christian.
Okay. Um,
So yeah, yeah.
yeah, because I mean, it's not the first time that I've heard that, and people for whatever
Hmm.
reason kind of don't want to. I don't really understand why. I don't want to be like, oh, not in the religious way, or like it's the plague or something. I don't
Yeah,
understand that,
yeah.
because I don't think it's a bad
Hmm.
thing or anything.
Hmm.
But what is it about?
Mm.
What is it about the relationships that one sees in a landscape that moves the viewer, or you as the artist, that makes you want to depict that in your work, or in a portrait when you see a particularly good looking person, or somebody that there's something about the proportions,
Mhm.
something about their featured, or something like, what about that is, where is the divine, where would you say the divine is there?
I think, well, I think it is divine. I think it's evidence for the divine. Um, but again, you might have to bear with me because I'm still feeling my way around this. I spent my entire life as an atheist, as an anti-theist, and I would argue with people about faith, about Christianity. I had a lot of the wrong ideas until I had a realization that the God of the Bible is absolutely real. Now, that's just my personal conviction. Um, I try not to push that on other people. I do love talking about it, certainly in my personal life. I don't have a religious YouTube channel, my content is not really focused on this, but it informs my personal life and my walk. So whenever and I think about it constantly when I'm working, when I'm painting, and I'm still exploring this stuff. Like I don't, I still really don't know, and I can't get my head around it. And I probably never will get my head around what this truly means. It's so profound. It's too big. It's too big for my little brain to be able to process it. It really is. But this process of recreating something, it really is an act of worship for me. And it's a humbling experience to go, wow, Yoa, you made this. Wow. Let me just rejoice and be glad in it for a minute. And let me just see if I can recreate and recapture this feeling that is in my heart now, so that maybe somebody else could get a sense of this thing. But at the end of the day, it's probably better to just take somebody else to the mountain and go, look at that, rather than show them my painting. But as an artist, I can't help but paint this stuff, you know? So I really don't know. I don't know how to answer it. But I continue to search for that and try to tap back into that feeling and recreate it. And I again, I think that the beauty, order, and I used to be a believer that there was no order, that it was all random. All this stuff is just happens by accident. And I think, and I'll just say for me, just because I prefer to stay friends with people that maybe aren't on this wavelength. That's fine. Everybody's on their own journey. But for me, the more I investigated it, the more I saw that there was order in everything, and that there was the hand of the divine there, and there was evidence of creation, and that ultimately in its natural form, before we ruined it with some form of agenda, it is beautiful. And because I also believe not only did he create, the heavens and the earth, but also us, that there is almost like a fractal, that creation within us, that the moment we see it, we recognize it, and there's this instant moment of connection between the viewer, the observer, and the created thing. We're both created things. There's this resonance that happens when we're being authentic and honest. Because other people will say, oh, I think this unmade bed is beautiful. No, you don't. You don't, you can't just put the unmade bed in the middle of the building and try and convince me that that's beautiful. It's not. And other people think you're absolutely mad, or you're trying to, pull some fast one on the audience. I'm not buying it anymore. I think other people are seeing through this. By the way, I think this is why a lot of people now say, oh, I know nothing about art. I've got no opinion. I know nothing about art. That's a crime. Art used to be something that fit within the context of a culture, that there was this feedback between art and culture, and people that looked at it immediately felt it was a celebration of their tradition, of their culture. It was beautiful. It conveyed some sort of meaning or message, or recorded a place, a point in time, something that was historically or culturally significant. And there was, but now you get people going, I don't understand art. Well, you're not meant to understand the banana taped to the wall. And you're not about to convince me that that's beautiful. If you, well, I think it's beautiful. I think you're full of it. And I think you're trying to convince other people that you're smarter than you are. I'm sorry. I'm not playing that game. Oh man, I sound so bitter. I really do. But for me, when it comes down to that relationship between beauty and the divine, it's a pursuit. It still, for me though, personally feels so clumsy, because I feel like I was talking about this with who was I talking to on the podcast about this? Andrew Nealon, that's right. And I feel like for me, my efforts are like a kid, like a 2-year-old drawing with crayons on a scrap of paper, handing it to his daddy, going, what do you think? I drew this for you. I put it up on my fridge. I'm proud as anything. I'm like, my kid did that. That's awesome. It's just chaos. And I feel like, hey, God, I made this for you. And this is something that I this is an act of, it's like, that's great. That's great. Put it down. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're singing to the choir when it comes to the, basically everything you just said. Particularly about, I actually just recorded a video on the subject relating to gatekeeping and elitism in art. And it's like these individuals that have been around for a little while now that are like, oh, you just don't get art. And it's like, yeah, because you made a piece of crap. That's not art.
It's nothing to get.
Yeah, there's nothing to get. And it's like, and it's like, so I haven't made really that much research on this part in particular about when that started happening, but it started happening with the Dadaists and, the first world, the two great wars, because those were events, and it is, everyone is traumatized to this day, this type of stuff. And so like all this stuff in terms of art is in part the result from that. Not just from that, but in part. But, because less and less people were getting any kind of traditional basic art education, then there's people that are like, yeah, if I say I'm an artist, then I'm an artist. And if I say this is art, then it's art. And it's like, if you have a brick on a pedestal and somebody looks at that and says, first of all, I don't get it. Second of all, I could do that. My 5-year-old could do that. And then the person who put the brick on the pedestal is like, oh, you just don't get it. And it's like, no, it's because first of all, that's not a work of art. And second of all, nobody has to tell you that it's a work of art. All right. You know when it's a work of art. And it's like, if your 5-year-old can make it, that means that it's not a work of art, basically, you know? And so like, that's what I was ranting about in the video that I was just talking about, that it's like, and then it's like the same thing with music. You know that it's music when it's music. Nobody has to tell you that that Yoko Ono is music, because that's not. All right. I'm just saying.
I love that single she brought out where she's just screaming. It's great.
It's ridiculous. Awesome. And it's like, I mean, I understand being inspired by something, whether it's art or music, and wanting to participate in it, like I get it. But it's like, you have to, you kind of have to earn it. And some people call that gatekeeping. Some people call that elitism. And it's like, I mean, so be it, whatever. It's like, there's a degree of gatekeeping for everything. For everything, So it's like, I don't, and actually, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily gatekeeping. I think there is nothing more democratic than art. Or accessible than art, because all you need is like the cheapest material, which is paper and pencil, to get started. That's all you need. Yes, all right. And then that's it. It's cheaper than a tablet. It's cheaper than getting the AI. All right. It's cheaper than getting a phone. It's cheaper than, it's one of the cheapest things you can possibly get. And then you just got to work at it until it's good. That's it. Anybody can do it. And then it's like, for appreciating art, anybody can do it. First, because like I just said, anybody has the capacity. Anybody knows when something is art versus when it's not art. And then once you have looked at a bunch of work, you will be able to just naturally derive what is obviously good versus what is obviously bad. Because by comparison, something is obviously going to be better than something else. So nobody has to teach you. Like, you don't even need the degree,
Right.
Anyway, I mean, that's ranty. It's really ranty. I
love it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, good. I'm saying you're singing to the choir here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right, go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's, and I know we're not the only ones, Gabrielle.
No,
there's been a lot of people that have been, saying this for a long while. And I think it's important to just, stick to our guns.
Yeah,
create based on what we deem to be important, pertinent, beautiful. And when we're doing that, then I think we will find our people.
Yes.
And I think hopefully these things, the more time goes on, that this will just be a blip. And people look back and go, wow, what were they on? Thank goodness the whole world didn't go completely nuts. Because, when people say to me, it's like, oh, how do I make it in the art world? Like, which one?
Yeah, right.
What are we talking about? Because I'm not interested in the art world. I'm just interested in people. That's it. There is an art world out there. There's an academic art world. There's a commercial art world. There's a this, there's a that. You want to play whatever game and get in that sandbox? Go for it. I'm not judging you. You do whatever you want to do. Just, I don't try and tell me that this is beautiful or important or something that I should be doing or that I need to change to somehow fit in. I'm going to continue to search and seek these things out on a personal, spiritual level with my own art. And I'm only looking for those people that are interested in that. If they're not, move on. It's okay. We don't got to be friends with everybody. We just got to find our people, you know?
Yes.
And that's the important thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
All right. Well, I like that a lot as the closing for the podcast because we have broken the hour mark, the hour-long mark, Mr. Tischler, by 10 minutes. So
that went quick.
It really went. I mean, I would have loved to ask you more things, but anyway, for now I can only do the hour-long episodes. So, what are you up to these days? You want to add anything? What classes or projects do you have coming up?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to plug some of my stuff. I do a lot, and people can find me online. Just Google my name. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I've got my own online art school if people would like to learn some really cool traditional painting techniques and go and paint something beautiful. It's called Tisch Academy. You can find it by going to tisch.academy. That name is TISCH. And yeah, I'm pretty much anywhere. So just look me up and I'll come up on the old Googles. And what I'm working on now, currently for our Academy students, we are producing several courses here. So right now we're in the middle of our landscapes painting course, and we're just about to really get going on our tree painting course and a portrait painting course. So I'm kind of releasing videos, like 1 week I'll release one demo for something and then something else for the others. I continue to host my podcast, The Creative Endeavor, which can be found on Spotify and iTunes. And I also, what else am I doing? I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty much it. Find me online, jump on my website, and subscribe to the newsletter. And my newsletter subscribers are generally the first to know about all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I'm also working on some commissions. I've been blessed to get a lot of commission work recently, so I'm working on some big paintings. Not that the horses behind me are a commission, but that's just one of my dream projects. So I'm looking at finishing that painting up this month. Hopefully, I might not make it, but we'll see.
Good luck with that and every single one
Thank
of your projects because they sound great. I'm totally going to listen to your podcast, by the way, because you mentioned it also during the conversation, and it sounds great.
Awesome.
All right, I'll go ahead and I'm going to start to then finish it off here. Mr. Tischler, thank you very much for talking with me today. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Pleasure.
If you want to support Tish and my podcast, you can do so through the links in the video description, and all of the things that Tish said are going to be on there. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Well, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. A little bit different. A huge shout out and thank you to Gabriela Handal for allowing me to be on her show. I hope you really enjoyed this. You can find Gabriela's work by going to Instagram. She is at Gabriela Handal. So that's Gabriela Handal, all one word, on Instagram. And she could also be found on YouTube. Her podcast is called A Conversation About Art. Now, this podcast was a little bit outside of the norm for me. We'll get back to our regular programming very soon, but I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, then please leave me a rating or a review on whatever audio platform you're listening on. It makes a huge difference to the podcast, my normal podcast, The Creative Endeavor, and also hopefully it'll help this podcast get out to more people. And of course, if you enjoyed this, then share this on your social media. I really appreciate you sharing the love and spreading the word. Okay, I'm going to get out of here and get back to painting. That's quite enough opinions out of me. I should think so. I'll see you again in another episode of the podcast, The Creative Endeavor, or A Conversation About Art, or whatever. Okay, this was fun. I'll see you soon.